Welcome, everybody, to the Labor for Life podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gahodery Rodriguez Cambry, and I will give everybody a warm welcome. We are going to go over this series on issues of work, employment, unions, the economy, from a pro-life perspective. So welcome everyone, and I want to give a brief introduction of my background. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Puerto Rico, the Rio Piedras campus. I graduated summa cum laude. Then I pursued a PhD in political science from Yale University. I graduated in 2008. I worked for 13 years for a labor union. I was an organizer and then a senior organizer. I organized workers in the hospitality industry for 13 years. The last 7 years, I actually work specifically in the airline catering industry. And I will talk more throughout the series about my different experiences as an organizer. But essentially after 13 years, I decided to go to law school as a mom with 3 children. So that was an interesting experience. I went to Ave Maria School of Law, and I graduated in December of 2022. After that, I represented the state in prosecuting criminal and civil matters. And these series are designed to be an expression of my personal opinions, not of any of the jobs that I may have had in the past or have now. I am also a proud traditional Catholic, or as they say, track Catholic. And though I was born in the Novus Ordo within the Catholic Church, I discovered the traditional Latin Mass a couple years ago. And now that's the Mass that I go to. So I will also share that journey at some other point. So what is Labor for Life about? These series are an intersection of work, labor, unions, and the economy. We're going to be covering these issues from a pro-life perspective because, one of the main reasons is that unions should be pushed to have a pro-life perspective. I think that no one is doing that right now, and I think that we should start immediately. My experience is that a lot of unions are more on the leftist side of the life issue. In fact, the AFL-CIO, which is a huge coalition of most unions in the United States, has a very strong pro-abortion agenda. And they try to push this agenda not only through the different unions that made up their coalition, but in work contracts with the employers and so forth. So we need to start talking about how unions should be pro-family, pro-human person, pro-defense of human dignity, and how everything that we do, whether it's work and the economy in general, should be leading to a society that is pro-family and pro-human person. So our goal is for the labor movement to embrace a pro-life perspective. That's going to be the main goal of this series, and to essentially bring people and interview people that agree with those goals, and want to make sure that we spread the pro-life perspective. My pro-life perspective, I would say that I generally has always been pro-life. I was at Yale University. I was already very much a conservative. At Yale was actually when I came across participating in unions. That's when I started. I joined the what's called GSO, the Graduate Employee and Student Organization, and I organized and participated in many events from 2002 through 2008, and including strikes and other events that we did. So I was always, but through Gahodery, I was always a pro-life. I was known to have a pro-life perspective. And one thing that I remember is that my organizer, who recruited me after working with me for a couple of years, he had gone to Arizona to organize over there, and he wanted me to follow him to Arizona. But at that time, I had not finished my PhD, and my family was in Puerto Rico, and I really felt like Arizona was way too far. I couldn't figure out how I was going to do that and finish my PhD. And I remember that he told me when I was saying that I wasn't really ready to move, he said that he understood if instead of doing that, I wanted to do other things such as being part of the pro-life movement, but otherwise I should be following him. And I don't think that I really responded much to him, but I remember thinking, why does he say pro-life movement? Like, I am pro-life. I definitely vote pro-life, but the pro-life movement is other stuff. It's like praying in front of an abortion clinic, standing up with signs, marching. You know, I never done any of those things. This was in 2006. And so I was rather struck that he said pro-life movement. But fast forward almost 20 years later, and I done it all. I have prayed in front of the abortion clinics. I have held on signs. I have done marches. Yes, so clearly he knew something about me that I didn't know myself. But I am very happy to be a member of the pro-life movement and to help to make our society more pro-life, because that's what we should be. We should be the culture of life and not the culture of death. So today we are going to start this introduction of series talking about President Trump's tariffs. And we are in the week of April 12th, 2025, and what's been really caught a lot of people's attention has been President Trump's tariff strategy. President Trump, who got elected, just re-elected in November of 2024, and he's been at this moment our president for a little over 100 days. And this issue of the tariff have really been very interesting. He did campaign on the tariff issue. He said that we needed to hold other countries accountable who haven't been nice to America. And I voted for President Trump, and I certainly voted for his economic strategy. Well, on Wednesday, April 2nd of 2025, President Trump showed in the White House what he called a reciprocal tariff chart. And it was a chart where it showed how much tariff other countries are charging America. Some of these were definitely outrageous. That what other countries charges, totally outrageous. And so America had been taken advantage of. And he also announced the reciprocal tariff, like the tariff that now he was going to charge to each country. And he reminded everybody that these tariffs were needed for a long time to end the advantage that other countries had over America and to rebalance the economy. So this caused quite some turbulence, let's say, from the left, who immediately started to say, that, this is a bad strategy, tariffs are going to doom the economy. Some people were even projecting a Black Monday where the markets will crash. And so that was the left perspective. But instead of a Black Monday, we didn't have a Black Monday, but also 75 countries called President Trump to ask for renegotiations of the trade agreements. And so that showed that President Trump's strategy was working. And he announced a pause of the tariffs. And then what happened was that the markets went up and had a wonderful, had just a very high day on the markets. So that was really amazing, right? That the market rebounded like that. There was a rally that happened. And so now the left is essentially in a bad spot because they're like, these tariff strategies are not working, but then countries are renegotiating trade agreements that are more beneficial to America. The pause of the tariffs also made the markets go up. So essentially the economy is it's rebounding, which is really great. And there were people in the Trump administration, like the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary Vicente, who remind everyone that the markets are just one component of the economy, not the whole economy. And actually, the 50% bottom of people in the U.S., they don't invest in markets. So whether it goes up or down, there's a lot of Americans who are not investing in the market at all because, there's not enough money for that. So that's a reminder that we need to work not for Wall Street, but for Main Street. But it's certainly, all things so far have been going President Trump's way. And so the left is outraged. They are outraged when they were insisting that President Trump's tariff strategy wasn't going to work. And now that it's working, they're also outraged because they hate President Trump. and they don't want to see our country succeed. So what are unions saying? Well, I think that the media may be giving particularly one side of the unions. Is very interesting because in reality, unions right now on the issues of tariffs and the economy have essentially two major sides. Side A is the AFL-CIO, led by Liz Schuler, who I would say perhaps the majority of unions, our union leadership, shall say, they essentially don't want to say anything positive about President Trump or his strategies. You know, like these leaders in the AFL-CIO and many other unions, they're trying to figure out how to constantly be negative on regards to President Trump. So they're saying that the tariffs are not the best strategy, that they may hurt workers and diminish benefits. They also attack very much the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which is led currently by Elon Musk, and so forth. I just want to say on DOGE, we know, of course, that this agency has been focusing on rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse in government. There's been many layoffs across the federal agencies because the government is simply too big, and it was made too big especially to push a woke agenda. And Elon Musk and his team has been identifying all of this waste, all of this money that have been going across all of the federal agencies for woke research and money overseas and for projects that had nothing to do with America. So they've been slashing all of that. And so that should be a good thing because that money that comes back to the taxpayers. But these unions on the side A, they're essentially want to just focus on Elon Musk and say that he's a bad guy, even though what he's doing is really giving back money to the taxpayers. So this one side of the unions, they don't want to say anything positive. But then there's the other side, the side B of the of some of the unions, especially the manufacturing and the agricultural unions. And so they actually want to see this economic strategy of President Trump and the tariffs succeed, because they feel that it's very important to level the playing field and to have more jobs. The United Auto Workers came out in support of the tariffs. In the post-millennial, they are quoted saying, "We are glad to see an American president take aggressive action on ending the free trade disaster that has dropped like a bomb on the working class." This they said on March 4th of 2025. So the UAW, the Teamsters as well, they had supported President Trump during his second presidential campaign. Well, second presidential campaign is this last presidential campaign, because technically it was his third presidential campaign for President Trump. So they supported him this last presidential campaign. And so the perspective of unions like the Teamsters, like the UAW, is that we want this status because we want these countries to, we want our jobs to not be focused on these other countries outside, but the jobs to be focused here in America. And also we want access to their markets, to the foreign markets, as opposed to them having just having access to ours. So, for example, at the White House, press conference announcing the tariffs, there were rank and file steel workers and auto workers. There was a retired auto worker from Detroit who spoke, asking for the policies, and advocating that these policies will bring back plants. Also, it was on the news, an Illinois cattle rancher that was interviewed by Fox News, that he said that we do need to increase our beef sales to other countries. This is great for the industry. So definitely we have some of the unions not only admitting but pushing and supporting President Trump's status, because they can see that this is going to be extremely important to bring back jobs to America and to open our opportunities of our workers in other countries and not the other way around. So from a pro-life perspective, our thing is that when good things are pursued, good things happen. And so we support a strong economy. A strong economy, it means more money in the American pockets. It means stronger families. It means men becoming better providers, women more satisfied, more marriages. And it can also lead to less abortions, because obviously if people are happier and have more money and so forth, it can actually make them want to have more babies instead of killing the babies. And some of these, we do have studies that back up that perspective. For example, that higher wages lead to increased birth rates. That's something that was a study in the effects of economic conditions and access to reproductive health services on state abortion rates and birth rates by Matthews, Ribard, and Wilhelm study, published in the Family Planning of Perspective in 1997. We also know that one of the reasons that moms may choose abortion is not being able to afford a baby. That has been talked about by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops in their brochure Poverty and Abortion, a Vicious Cycle, which they published in 2014. So we know that a boom in the economy is simply a good thing. And so we really want this tariff strategy. We agree with President Trump 100% that we have been taking advantage as a country for far too long. This advantage needs to end. We need to hold countries around the world accountable and make sure that there is a level playing field. And we definitely believe that leveling the playing field will mean more jobs for Americans and a better economy for us. And ultimately, other countries will benefit too when America does well. But certainly, as President Trump had said, America first. So in conclusion, we will see you. Thank you so much for your time in listening. And I'll be back with you in 2 weeks. This series has a system of it is a weekly series, but it alternates between English and Spanish. So this is the first series that I came out. Next week is going to be in Spanish. So for our English audience, the next time that you will have a podcast will be in 2 weeks. So I see everybody and see you soon. Thank you.